Ferruccio was born on April 28, 1916 in Italy. He grows up in a family with few resources but very hardworking. His father, mother, and brothers work tirelessly in their dreams to be able to obtain good harvests every year. Like his family, Ferruccio has worked in the field since he was little, where they repair the tractors that his father uses every day. This awakens a great passion for these vehicles. This girl, who when she grows up even seeks to study at a university, something related to the subject. However, a world event changes the course of his life and that of many other people. This event was called the Second World War, as many already know. In this conflict, many of the great powers grouped into two opposing military alliances. The Allies made up of Great Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union against the powers of the Axis, Germany, Italy, and Japan, which devoted all their economic, military, and scientific capacity to this conflict. During this period, thousands of families were separated, as many young people enlisted in the armed forces to serve their country. That was also the case with Ferruccio Lamborghini. Ferruccio, at the age of 23, is recruited by the Royal Italian Air Force and assigned to the mixed invention of maneuvers for the repair of military vehicles on the island of Rhodes. A few years later, Italy surrenders and the Allied forces take everyone as prisoners of war, including Ferruccio and his companions. But in an unexpected twist, the army realizes his incredible skills as a mechanic, so he works for them for a while, repairing machines until he is finally released. At the end of the war, he returns home excited with his best friend Matteo, excited and happy to resume their lives right where they left them. Although Ferruccio is excited to see his family again, he first makes a stop to see Celia, the love of his life, where he declares the feelings that his heart feels for her. After a long journey, Ferruccio finally arrives home, where he is greeted with tears and joy by his family, who are happy that he has returned safely during the afternoon. Ferruccio takes the opportunity to have a moment alone with his father, since he is about to propose something that will change their lives. He confesses to her that he has made the decision to go to the city to live with Celia and start his own family. Seeing the disappointment on her father's face, she decides to tell him the rest of her plans. He plans to open a workshop to build tractors that are much more powerful, practical, and cheap than the competition. Although his father completely denies this idea, trying to reassure him, Ferruccio tells him that with Matteo's help, he will modify an old car with which he will win a competition. With the prestige of this victory, they will be able to raise funds from investors, and in this way, the production of their tractors will begin. However, his father still does not trust his words. Since the economic situation of the country is fragile, he is barely recovering after the war, and he fears that his son will fail. But Ferruccio conveys calm to him with the phrase, "Let it work from here." Ferruccio already proved to be someone visionary even before he started. He was aware that after the war, there was going to be a growing demand for tractors in the Italian market, so trusting his reading of the map, he decided to go all out. Ferruccio is a young man with revolutionary ideas, with absolute confidence in himself, and in his knowledge he assures that if it doesn't go well, it will not affect him, since according to him, the best way to fail is to seek greatness. Finally, the big day comes. Ferruccio and his best friend compete in a race that will be held at the Terra di Motori. Terra di Motori is an Italian expression that in Spanish means land of mixed-back engines, which refers to a region recognized for having abundant automobile manufacturing centers, very prestigious brands and events regarding the automotive world. In fact, Enzo Ferrari himself is present, and he is the one who gives the award. This man is someone who will soon have relevance, so don't forget about him. The cars get into position, Ferrari orders the flag, and the race starts at the beginning. Matteo drives, but things get complicated when Ferruccio takes the wheel. The obsession with winning first place causes them to suffer a small accident that leaves them immediately highly disqualified. This first failure affects them deeply due to the effort and dedication they had left in the project. However, that same night, something will happen that will change the way he sees things. Matteo vents to Clary about what happened in the race. She, who has always been by his side supporting him, motivates him to keep trying, since she is surprised that they are expecting a baby. This changes the game completely because it becomes the engine in Ferruccio's life inspired. The man makes the decision to go to his father's house to tell him the news and also to ask him for a loan, the little money he has in his wallet. But Ferruccio, somewhat grieved, insists that he needs much more and promises to return everything with interest. Later, his father arrives with a piece of paper which belongs to the mortgage of the property where the entire Lamborghini family lives and gives it to Ferruccio with a gesture of trust never shown before. However, this time Elia does not show the same joy as her husband. She even gets upset since she doesn't see it fair to risk everything for a dream. This is an extremely risky decision, but Ferruccio's mission and decision to achieve his goal sees no obstacles or possibilities. It is that something goes wrong. He can only see his dreams come true. Finally, that Elia suggests that he stop dreaming and instead of spending that money, go to the bank and deposit it in his father's account. He agrees to the next morning, instead of fulfilling his promise, deposit the money into his own account to start with the project. In a small, dark workshop, Matteo and Ferruccio get to work on one of the first tractors. They share some of their ideas, many of quite ambitious goals, and when Matteo asks Ferruccio if this will work, the boy replies, "We will make it work while he is." In the workshop working on the project, Matteo sees a really beautiful woman get off the bus, from whom he is hopelessly arrowed. Ferruccio encourages him to go talk to him, but he is too shy to even try. At lunchtime, they go to a cafe and see again the beautiful young Matteo stares at her, and his friend again insists that he come closer to talk to him, but he is unable to speak while looking her in the eyes. So Ferruccio stands up and approaches. She kindly gives him a warm smile and introduces herself. She does the same. Immediately afterwards, Ferruccio introduces her to his friend Matteo. Anita greets the young man, but he again is not able to say more than a timid hello. Meanwhile, in the workshop, everything is progressing perfectly. Both friends continue working hard on the tractor, which is almost ready. It seems that is what they have put so much time and effort into. It will finally bear fruit at the same time. The baby is about to be born. Clelia has carried her pregnancy wonderfully, even though she has been practically alone the whole time. The woman knows that the day of delivery is coming, so she asks Ferruccio not to be late from work, because probably those days the baby will be born. It is here when the story takes a sadly unexpected turn we see that. Last night, Ferruccio ignores his wife and instead paints his tractor the classic deep orange color. At the same time, the love of her life waits anxiously because she knows the time has come. Finally, the Lamborghini plate logo is ready, so Ferruccio walks to his house to show his wife his creation. But when he enters, he finds the floor stained with blood. Having the worst, Ferruccio runs to the hospital where his wife is in labor. Claudia is having her greatest creation, but she is having to do it completely alone because her husband was so obsessed with it. It burns, the birth gets complicated, and Celia starts bleeding too much. After long minutes, the little baby sees the light, but this at the expense of his mother's life, as Clenia loses her life in childbirth. Upon arriving, Ferruccio realizes that it is already too late, so devastated and repentant, he snuggles into his wife's chest. Ferruccio returns to the workshop, which took away time from him with the woman he loved. In a fit of anger and sadness, he takes a hammer and attacks his own creation, but not before destroying it. He stops. Remember that orange tractor is his dream for which he must continue fighting, and above all, because now he has a baby to feed. Regarding upbringing, he receives a little help from his family, especially from his mother. When the tractor is ready, Ferruccio goes to the bank to look for investors offering his already finished tractor. This first model was named Carioca, where it incorporates a series of improvements that make it different from the tractors of the time. For example, it has a fuel vaporizer, an ingenious invention created by Ferruccio. This device allows tractors to start using gasoline, which makes it easier to start the engine. But once the engine is running the vaporizer, it keeps the tractor running on petroleum, a cheaper and more accessible fuel. This technology not only optimizes tractor performance, but also offers an efficient and practical solution for fuel use, reducing operating costs and improving energy efficiency. That is, Ferruccio creates a tractor that is twice as strong, costs half as much as anyone else, and the manufacturing cost is much lower. Fortunately, he gets investors for the manufacture of 100 copies, and when does he get it? At the news, his friend, they both burst with happiness. They finally made it work. This news ends in a celebratory meeting with Matteo, where they toast to the beginning of his biggest dream and also to the late Clelia. Later, they see Anita, the young woman Matteo is in love with, having dinner at the same restaurant. Ferruccio advises him to approach her and talk to her once and for all, since he never knows when the last time he will see her again will be. He says this from his own experience, since at that moment the memories of Clelia losing her life invade him. He feels so overwhelmed that he tells his friend that he will leave the restaurant holding back his tears and then release them in a quieter place. While he is sitting in a small park, Anita approaches him and confesses that she would actually be more interested in getting to know him than her friend Matteo. The girl sits next to him and they chat for a long time until Matteo leaves the restaurant and sees them, which breaks his heart. Disappointed by his friend's supposed betrayal, he leaves and never returns. Despite Ferruccio's pleas to preserve the friendship, he refuses and demands 25% of the company. After having lost two of the most important people in his life, Ferruccio focuses on his work to escape. The loneliness he feels. This will be one of the biggest mistakes he will make in his life, and in the end you will realize why Ferruccio immerses himself so much in his work that he manages to make his first 100 tractors, which are quite a success. The first Rio tractors were offered to local farmers, and after a few months the company was already unable to meet the numerous orders that arrived. For this, Ferruccio obtained a bank loan and bought 1,000 Morris gasoline engines and hired mechanics and laborers to speed up the assembly lines. To give you an idea, the company started by producing a tractor in LA. But because of its excellent product, it quickly scaled to about 200 per month. I now not only had a model, but I was inventing new models to satisfy different needs. First came the first mass-produced L33, then came the DL30, YDL40. Technology advances and Ferruccio's ambition too, so with his company, he designs the first crawler tractor, the DL25CY. By the beginning of the 1960s, almost 400 people worked in the company, and between 25 and 30 are assembled. Tractors keep up with all this growth because he knew how to be in the right place at the right time, thanks to knowing how to read the map well and working very, very hard. In a relatively short time, he became a billionaire. He also invested in other industries, designing high-quality heaters and air conditioners. As his fortune grows, Ferruccio begins to develop a strong attraction to racing and sports cars. By the 1950s, he had a collection of 7 sports cars. Among his favorites were Jaguars, Mercedes, Maseratis, and Ferraris. But there was a Ferrari with which he had a kind of relationship, love-hate. This is the Ferrari 250 GT. On the one hand, its spectacular design stole viewers' eyes and handled in a spectacular way, but on the other hand, this one had some flaws. When checking the engine with his mechanics, he discovers that the fault is in the clutch, which is very similar, if not the same, to the one they use in the manufacture of their tractors. This outraged him a little, as it seemed incongruous for them to use the same parts if the price difference between products was abysmal, so I'm sure I know how. How to repair it. Do you have the idea of offering Ferrari a partnership? One afternoon, Ferruccio approaches Enzo Ferrari at the door of his offices, confesses that he is a great admirer of his work and that he also owns several models. Ferrari, even though everyone has problems with the clutch, proposes to make a partnership between Ferrari and Lamborghini so that they can create the best sports and luxury cars in the world. Enzo didn't take this well at all, dismissing Ferruccio and insisting that the problem was not with the car, but with him, adding something like a tractor manufacturer he's not going to teach me how to make sports cars for. After leaving without even turning around to see, this interaction awakens a fire inside Ferruccio. And after that deal and repeated problems with his Ferraris, Ferruccio decides to design the best grand touring sports car the world has ever seen and is determined to make it happen during a visit to a bullfighting exhibition. Ferruccio is shocked by the strength that these animals can immediately have. He associates it with his engines and his personal life. The strength and courage that the bull figure possesses lead him to choose the Miura bull as the logo for his brand, confident and convinced of his idea. That same year, he consulted with his engineers about the possibility of presenting it at the Geneva Motor Show. Ferruccio insisted on having it ready in 6 months. Despite the refusal of his colleagues, he looks for a way to design some parts of the engine with aluminum so that it is lighter and the car can have more power. Finally, after a long debate, he manages to convince and motivate them to try, assuring that if they fail, at least they did, trying to seek greatness just as he told his father some time ago. To achieve this, he created the first car factory with the name Lamborghini Automobile in San Agata, Bolognese, a small town in the province of Bologna, known as the Land of Engines. That's right, that region that witnessed his first failure is where Ferruccio decides to manufacture his first luxury car. On the other hand, Ferruccio begins to show attention for other young women, in this case for his secretary Anita, with whom he had been in a relationship for some years now. He notices her intentions, so he chooses to fire her without consulting him and look for a new one. While they are having dinner, she confronts him by telling him that it's not okay to invest all the profits from the tractors into making a car if it goes out. Mal would have lost all profits and possibly go bankrupt. From his point of view, there are already many sports cars that, unlike tractors, the competition manufactures the best. However, Ferruccio interrupts her and assures her that it will turn out fine at that time. Some companies are closing due to fuel shortages and rising prices. People don't buy many cars anymore and employees are striking because they're not paid well. However, Ferruccio assures that he is taking very good care of his employees and pays them good salaries. When there are only 3 months left until the presentation, the design engineer brings the sketch he chooses for the car. It is a creative design and not a washer, but Ferruccio doesn't like it, so he asks him to start over. On the other hand, the engineer in charge of manufacturing the engine also presented a model that Ferruccio is not convinced, so he asked him to put the horizontal carburetors so that the engine can fit in the little space there is. One night, over coffee, he starts designing the bull logo on a napkin for his first car. Later, a logo expert takes the sketch to give it the desired shape. This is how the official Lamborghini logo was born, with the characteristic Miura bull. The next day, Ferruccio gives an interview. He says that at the next car show in Geneva, he will present the best car, the Lamborghini 3F50 Gran Turismo. They ask him why he designed a luxury car, and the market already has many of them, and he assures that he does it in search of perfection. Finally, the design engineer presents another sketch. This one is perfect. Everyone is impressed and assures that it will be a real hit. The result is the iconic Lamborghini 350 GT1, an elegant car with a curved front, pop-up headlights, a wraparound sloping windshield, and a large flat rear window ending in a straight tail. Based on this, the work of forming the parts begins, and its employees work hard on each of them to achieve the perfection they seek so much. Ferruccio. Then he attends a party with Anita and Tonino, his son, while he is at the table, creating the sketch of his next car. A beautiful young woman approaches to talk to him. They both feel closer and closer until he places his hand on her leg, trying to seduce her. Anita sees them and, very disappointed, asks for a divorce and takes Tonino, as he has proven to be incapable of paying attention to her all this time. This is how, once again, Lamborghini ends up losing two of the most important people in his life again. However, the Lamborghini 350 Gente is a success. It manages to pass the tests perfectly, and the next step is to take it to the presentation in Geneva in 1964. This particular event is held every year at the beginning of March at the Palexpo Convention Center in Geneva and presents a very complete program for car fans. Here, in more than $120,000 domesticas of exhibition, hundreds of innovative models and the latest technology are presented. Finally, the opening presentation and Ferruccio's car takes all the attention, overshadowing Ferrari's. Ferruccio is asked how much his car costs, to which he begins a speech that ends with this iconic phrase: "You buy a Ferrari when you want to be someone in life, but you buy a Lamborghini when you are someone in life. When it ends, you receive." Applause and ovations from the public, and journalists take many photographs, taking all the attention of the exhibition. Later, between 1965 and 70, Ferruccio decided to launch different models on the market, the most notable being the Lamborghini Miura, an innovative and legendary car that surprises the genre of super sports cars with the engine in the rear axle. When the Museum of Modern Art in New York and exhibits Lamborghini Miura declare it as the most beautiful car that has been made for the beginning of the 70s, Lamborghini becomes the ultimate symbol of. Hasia y Lujo has already launched several very successful models on the market after having been able to overcome several economic crises of the time. But after decades of success, everything falls under the heavy blow to the automobile industry. The combination of strikes and a 300% increase in oil is proving to be very harmful for Italy, and so you can see how serious the situation is. I'm putting you in context for that time. The 1973 oil crisis had a very strong socio-cultural and economic impact. In Europe, unemployment increased on a large scale, causing a huge global recession the following year, and furthermore, the inflation that buried the growth of any economy. Even Ferruccio Lamborghini, famous for having personally negotiated the contracts and salaries of his employees, is surpassed by the economic crisis of the moment. Sadly, he begins little by little to sell the heritage that he had so much difficulty obtaining. 1 year later, he invites his son Tonino to dinner, who has already formed his own family, lives with his wife in a beautiful house, and they have 3 beautiful children. Ferruccio tells his son that he will sell the company because with the new oil crisis, it is unsustainable to continue manufacturing cars. He says that 50% of the money from the sale belongs to him and the other 50% is for his brothers. The conversation continues where her son talks to her about his family and what he has missed these years, scars in the mind of not having been more present in the lives of the little ones. He becomes uncomfortable, and the father tells his son that he is named Cavaliere del Lavoro, an honorary Italian title awarded to businessmen who have demonstrated effort and leadership in their sector over the last 20 years and whose work has contributed to society. The young man responds by congratulating his father, telling him that he is very happy for him because he has everything he has always wanted in his life and was able to achieve everything he wanted. Finally, he asks him, "It was worth it." Dad Ferruccio notices the intention of the question, and when he tries to answer, his son prepares to leave because for their relationship, as for the last goodbye with his wife, it is already too late and finished with the story. Ferruccio ended his life again in agriculture, more precisely in some vineyards that he buys before selling the company, maybe because of the longing for something familiar, maybe because he feels that he belongs somewhere, or just maybe because he wants to feel at home. Ferruccio died in February 1993 at the age of 77, but he leaves us a great legacy in the automotive industry that lasts to this day. Currently, the Lamborghini company is valued at $11 billion, being owned by Audi and Volkswagen. But hey, now Tonino's question resonates. Was it all worth it? Was it worth it to have consistently neglected your family? What is the limit of sacrifice to achieve your ambitions?